Hello and welcome to the Aquarius Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Reed. This episode of the Aquarius Podcast is sponsored by OASE. Now, if you haven't already checked them out, head on over to the OASE website using the links in the show notes and check out their full line of filtration products. Learn more about the FiltoSmart and BioMaster external filters and the BioPlus internal filters. Also, follow their social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram to see more of these great filters in action. Now, on to the interview. Today's date is Wednesday, July 17th, 2019. My guest today is Erik Lucas. Erik is the owner of BuyPetShrimp.com, one of the finest places to buy freshwater shrimp on the internet. Erik has traveled the world for the shrimp hobby and spoken at numerous fish clubs in the USA. And of course, Erik was guest number 1 of the Aquarius Podcast back on February 9th of 2018. So Erik, welcome back to the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me back, Randy.
So you were a crazy enough fool almost a year and a half ago to answer this stranger's request to come be on a brand new podcast, and you said yes.
Yeah, it's I get a lot of requests to do stuff like that or whatever, and I usually say no, but I can't remember the reason why I decided to say yes to you, but for whatever reason I did, and it worked out fine. And
divine intervention.
Yeah, no, it was really strange, but it worked out.
Yeah, actually, I had to go back to pull that February 9th, 2018 date, because I do that for every single episode, regardless of if it's live or I'm driving in a car, like whatever the crazy things I've done over the past 60-some-odd episodes. And just hearing that intro, like the audio quality was, I didn't really understand the audio mixing and post-production sound adjustment and all that stuff. And not to say that I've got anything down to a science, because I'm learning something every single podcast, but like it was real low volume and it just didn't sound that great. So episode 1. Thank you for being the guinea pig, Erik.
Yeah, no problem.
And through that though, I will say though, you did get a trip up to Seattle recently.
Yes, I've been up to Seattle a couple times recently. I was up there for AGA and then to speak to your club as well.
Well, I'm going to take 100% of the credit for bringing you up here for for speaking at the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society. So that's anytime I can get a guest on. It's only happened twice now, you and Greg Steves, but future guests that come on that I have a hand in getting them to speak at the club, I'm going to wear that like a badge of honor.
Yeah, no, it was a great honor. I love going and speaking to clubs. So, for me, it's public speaking has always come fairly easily to me. Obviously, you get a little nervous before any time you got to get in front of a group of people, but once you get rolling, it's fine. And when it's a topic that you love and you care about, it's really easy to all of a sudden look up and it's been an hour and 15 minutes and they're cutting you off.
Nice.
Which unfortunately does happen quite a bit because there's so many questions from people when you go give a talk like this, because most people have been in the aquarium hobby for 20 or 30 years, but they had no clue these shrimp exist. So there's always tons of questions, which I love getting questions during the presentation, because for me, it just breaks up the monotony of it. And so before I know it, I'll be halfway through my presentation and they're like, hey, you have 5 minutes left. So then I have to roll through everything else real quick. So I kind of put the stuff that I don't think is as important at the end of the presentations, but it's just it's one of those things that I love doing, and I get to meet all kinds of new people. People are very appreciative if you're willing to take the time to come talk to their club, and it's something I look forward to doing a lot more in the future.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was a blast having you up. I mean, I think I introduced you, didn't I? Yeah.
Yes.
I did your introduction before you spoke. That was cool. But I don't want to give away one of your secrets, but you giving the candies at the beginning, am I giving away a trade secret of yours?
No, I'm pretty well known for candy.
Dude, so when you busting out that gigantic bag of haichu and just passing that around at the very beginning, I think is instantly, it's like this icebreaker, you're just able to really show that you care and that you're kind of involved and that you want people to enjoy your presentation. And by kicking it off with one of the most delicious candy substances known to man, aka the haichu, that was phenomenal, man. That was such a clutch move, and I almost wish that like everybody would just copy that and just hand out candy or whatever it is. A couple other speakers have done that, but that's so awesome to do that. And then the way that you handled some of the questions too, not that there were any, I mean, nobody was trying to stump you, but you actually had a couple questions where I had never even heard of like the type of shrimp that the person was even asking you about, or something very in depth in terms of cull selection or something. Like, I had never even heard that brought up in a video or any of the forums that I perused or any of the Facebook groups. And you just handled it like boom, like I'm a veteran, like, oh yeah, I've done that before, blah blah blah. Here's my answer. It's like, damn, Eric,
Yeah,
Eric knows his stuff.
for most things, for most questions, I mean, I've been doing it for about 10 years now. So I've encountered most problems that other people have encountered or most issues that other people have come up with. But if I don't know, I'm also not afraid to say, I don't know. And I think a lot of times when certain speakers or whatever, they feel like they always have to have an answer for everything and they have to be the expert and an expert would know everything about everything. But there's always stuff that we don't know. So I'm not afraid to tell somebody, hey, I don't know that, but I'll go home and research it and I'll get back to you or whatever, which I think is important to do because I mean, I don't know everything. I know a lot about shrimp, obviously. It's my hobby and my job. But there's, like you said, there's stuff that you had never heard of. There's stuff that I've never heard of. People ask me about some kind of shrimp that I've never heard of, what its requirements are, or whatever. And I really don't know. So instead of being like, oh, it's this and this and this, and I think it's that and that, I'd rather just say, hey, I don't know, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that night, I don't think you had any of those, but I know you, and I completely believe that you would do that.
Yeah, no, it's pretty rare, but I do get stumped. Believe me, it does happen. And you know how clubs are as well. Club members always seem to have that one club member who feels like it's their duty
probably like 5
to try to stump the speaker. And it was something I was warned about. In fact, Tom Barr had warned me about it before I ever gave my first talk. I was talking about giving a presentation, and he was just like, basically be prepared. There's always going to be somebody that thinks they know the topic better than you.
And then you just diffuse it and be like, you get 2 high chews for stumping me.
Yeah, always give them like 10, so then their mouth's full for a while.
Yeah, you got to find out from like your friend inside of like whatever club you're speaking at. Like, all right, who's the dude or the girl that's going to ask me the stump questions? Like, when it comes time to Q&A, either spill water in their lap so they have to leave the room, or just put a bunch of high chew in front of them.
That's so funny because every group does that. Every group, I usually know somebody from every group, and they will say, "Hey, this guy here, his name is this. If he's there, be prepared. He's going to ask you 50 questions. He's going to try to stump you." And it's just it comes with the territory. People are passionate about aquariums, and there's some people that are very, very, very passionate about aquariums. So. I welcome it. If I get stumped, I get stumped. It means I'm going to learn something new because I'm going to do the research on it and find out an answer.
Wow, that's funny. That's so funny that like the clubs actually do that for you. That's awesome.
It has happened multiple times, believe it or not, because they know. Every club knows. They have that one person that's just like, over the top about certain things, and they usually give me a heads up.
Oh, that's good times, man. All right, so what else have you been up to since last year, February 2018?
Well, I mean, I've been up to a lot. Let's see. So in that meantime, we've had the shrimp competition in the USA, which was in October, I believe, in New Jersey, and I entered, I think, either 4 or 5 categories, and I placed in all of them except for one, which for me was really exciting. I had entered the year before and only entered I entered 2 groups of shrimp, and I got first place in one category and second in the other, and that's the only time I've ever entered. So then this last year I was like, I'm going to enter some more, and I did pretty well, so I was pretty happy. I mean, you're going up against some of the best in the world. We had 5 or 6 breeders from Taiwan fly in. And for me, it was just a huge honor to even get even if I get a 3rd place in a category with entries from 8 or 10 other great breeders, to me, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. So I was really happy with that. I didn't get any first places this last year, but that's fine. But I got a couple seconds and a couple thirds, so that was awesome. And then
and you were with Vin, right? Vin flew out too.
Yeah, Vin came, and he hung out at the booth for quite a bit and talked to people and gave them his insight. For as much insight as I have on the hobby, he has even more.
Yeah, for maybe those that don't know Vin, or they never listened to our first episode number 1, where you talked about Vin a little bit. Just give me like a quick 2 or 3 sentences on who Vin is to kind of paint the picture for those that are just hearing his name for the first time.
Well, Vin is probably one of, if not the most respected breeder from Taiwan, which is crazy because in Taiwan, it's very competitive and combative, and nobody ever says anything nice about anybody. But most breeders will say, "Oh, Vin's a great guy. He's been super helpful. He's always helpful with people that ask questions. He's won numerous grand championships, numerous first, seconds, thirds, and he's a really good guy for the hobby because he's very helpful."
Yeah, no, he was definitely an awesome guy. You introduced me to him, and he just comes across incredibly humble. Very very happy guy, and there's like no like bravado or any arrogance that comes off of him that you might expect from somebody that is so revered and produces a shrimp or a fish that is of that caliber. And the dude he just seems incredibly down to earth. And then the fact that you guys actually like did 1,000-mile car trip, right? You guys drove up from Sacramento,
Yes.
California, up to Oregon. So you and like the number one breeder from Thailand or Taiwan are just doing this like West Coast road trip to go speak at some clubs.
Well, for me, it was I go up every few months when there's a group in Eugene, a shrimp club in Eugene that meets every 3 or 4 months, and I've been to every single meeting except for this last one. I couldn't make it, but so for me, it's like the same thing over and over, and it's a beautiful drive. It's like a 7-hour drive each way. But for him, he loved it because obviously he's never been out to the West Coast before or anything. So driving past Mount Shasta and seeing all the mountains and the valleys and everything on the way, he loved it. So it was really exciting for him, but it was a lot. He was here for about a week and a half, and basically he got here, rested for one day, then we drove up to Oregon. He gave a presentation, which English is his second language, obviously, and he did very well. Obviously, people are always a little concerned when it's not their native language and they're going to be presenting to a group of 40 or 50 people. But he did great. Everybody loved having him there. And then basically we came home, started catching shrimp to take to New Jersey for about a day and a half because we took some, obviously, for the competition. I had to pick my competition shrimp, and then I had to bring some to sell in the booth as well. So for literally a day and a half, nonstop, we caught shrimp, and then we hopped on a plane and made it to New Jersey, and hung out there for a few days, had a great time, and then he went back to Taiwan, and I came back home.
Yeah, I'm really floored at how hardy the shrimp are. I know that when you and I had talked in the previous episode that you had said no, shrimp are pretty hardy, and I was just blown away by it. But and I still am blown away at the ability to catch them in California at your home and ship them across the country, show them, and then sell them or bring them back with you, and they're still doing really, like, they're still healthy. Like, these things, it's really incredible, like how hardy these creatures are.
Even I was amazed in our tanks at the booth. Let's say we brought, I don't know, I guess maybe 500 shrimp. I don't think a single one died.
Wow.
Or at least we saw. Now, who knows? Maybe something died overnight and something ate it or whatever. But nothing we ever saw in the tanks was dead. And surprisingly, our competition shrimp all did very well too. Which is pretty rare. Usually, if you were to enter, let's say, 5 groups of 4 shrimp in a competition, pretty likely you're going to lose at least 1 or 2 of those shrimp over the 2 or 3 days that they're in that tank. And I think I lost one, and I don't think Vin lost any of his. And Vin's had come from Taiwan to my house to new tanks for 4 days, and then recaught, taken on the plane to New Jersey, putting new tanks there. And then he took them home with him. So
Jeez.
It's crazy. You're right. You would definitely think that there's no way these little creatures could go through all that and still be alive. But when you know what you're doing and you have good, they've grown up in a good and healthy tank environment, and the proper care for them, they're actually pretty hardy little creatures. But obviously sometimes they die. It does happen.
Yeah. To completely digress and go back, on your drive up to from Northern California into Oregon, is Lake Shasta still like damn near empty, or is it?
No, it's basically full now because the last 2 years there's been tons of rain.
Wow.
When we went, it would have been fairly low because it would have been all the way through summer, and then the rainy season really hadn't started yet because I think it was like October, so maybe we'd had a couple days of rain, but it was surprisingly pretty full. And obviously that's a huge lake. So it's like, you drive and you come to it, and then like 5 minutes later, you see another arm of it. And then 7 minutes later, you see another part of it. And then 8 minutes later, you see another part of it. And it's like, 40-minute long, drive, you're seeing parts of the lake. So,
Yeah, because I think in what was it, 2015, when we drove up there, moving up to from San Diego, driving up through Northern California into Pacific Northwest, it was just incredibly low. Like you look down over, and it looked like the Grand Canyon. Like it was so far down there. And it was amazing. Like this, California is just gonna, freaking spontaneously combust. If Lake Shasta, which is known as like this water sport mecca, houseboats and all of that, like that's what Lake Shasta is known for. And
tons of recreation.
People, if you want something to Google Map, Google Map Lake Shasta and check it out. And this thing was like bone dry. You see the watermarks of it just constantly dropping and leaving a watermark, dropping, leaving a watermark. It was incredible how low it was, and I'm like, man, it's a good thing I'm getting out of this drought-ridden state.
Well, there was a bunch of pictures going around about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, of like like a bridge at the lake, and like during normal time, and let's say it looked like there was 40 feet of water underneath it, and it was 600 feet wide of water, and then in 2015 it was like bone dry, nothing there.
That's happening. Yeah, that happened when I lived in Sacramento to Folsom Lake. I remember always watching the news, like summertime. It's like, oh yeah, Folsom Lake, we're finding some other settlement structure that's been underwater for 50, 60. Well, I mean more than that, like a really long time since whenever Folsom Dam went up.
Well, yeah, Folsom, they had to cut. There was like no boats, or boats could only go 5 miles an hour for like a whole summer on there because it was so low. It was really bad for a while, but then thankfully last 2 years we've got tons of rain, so it's kind of made up for it. And I would assume the drought's basically over. You look everywhere, there's still snow on mountains, and we're a month into summer, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, right now we're having this really weird, like humid, super overcast, and actually it rained the past couple days here, and then it's like, is it mid-July? Like, what's going on here? It's supposed to rain up until it's supposed to rain up until July 5th here, so it rains on your 4th of July barbecue, and then it kicks into like this perfect weather. But yeah, I digress. People are now getting way too much Pacific Northwest and Northern California weather right now.
Yeah, no, we've been pretty mild so far here, but about the last 3 or 4 days it's been about 100. So once it gets to 100, it tends to stay there for about 2 months. You may have a little deviation or go down to 97, 98, or up to 106, 108, but we usually get about a good 2-3 months of 100-degree weather here. So
man, I don't miss that. Oh
no,
and that's when you make that. That's when you make that run out to San Francisco for the day and just kind of bask in that mid 70s temperature they get.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. You just drive an hour and a half away and it's 30-degree difference. So
yeah. All right, man. So what else have you been up to?
Well, I think it was about in December. It was right around Christmas time. I'd always been kind of looking to expand the business a little bit because basically you've been to my house. You saw how it was. I have a decent-sized house, but when you're running a business out of it and you have one room all for aquariums, one room as an office with aquariums products, you have, all your cupboards full of products, it kind of takes over your home. So I had been looking for something, not actively looking, but, every few weeks getting on like LoopNet or whatever and seeing if anything around here was available. And you, like I said, you've been here, so there's not tons of like commercial areas or retail areas very close. And I wanted something that I could literally hop in my car and be there in like 2 minutes.
Which for people that don't know, and to interrupt you, your car is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's like my one prized possession.
It is an absolutely awesome Dodge Challenger. But continue, Eric.
So my wife and I were driving down to the Walmart, which is just a few minutes away, and there's a little strip mall, and there was a sign that said for rent or whatever. And in the 5-6 years I've lived here, I've never seen anything for rent there. So I gave the number a call, talked to the guy, who's super nice. We went and looked at a few units that were actually there available, and I picked the one that I liked the best. It was cement floors. It was wide, about 1,800 square feet, just wide open. Literally no walls or barricades or anything, just an 1,800 square foot wide open area, a restroom in the back, and then what I assume used as an office as well, which I'll use for storage, for products and stuff. But we saw it, and I really wanted it, and there was just some issues. Some of the floor was coming up a little bit, the cement from a tree next door. was pushing up the foundation a little bit. So they had insurance look at that, and before we knew it, it was like 5-6 months down the road. Still hadn't got in there. They still knew I wanted it. They still contacted me fairly often, giving me updates. But finally, in May, I got the keys to the place.
Nice.
So yeah, I had a buddy whose father-in-law was a contractor, retired now. So he came for about 3 weeks over, and he's an older guy, so we'd spend like 4 or 5 hours a day building the rack. And so we built a rack that holds 54 20 longs against the left wall of the building. Left wall of the building is about 60 feet long.
And so let's just pause and marinate on that. You said 54 20 longs.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Because right now, like, what would you say? Oh, God, because I've been in your fish room, and that's probably or the shrimp room rather. Not your office, but in your shrimp room, it was how many tanks?
Shrimp room was 59-gallon aquariums.
59-gallon aquariums. Okay, and so just on one wall, you're already up to 54 20 longs.
Yes.
Awesome.
And keep in mind, like I said, it was December when I saw this place, and I thought I'd be in within the original plan was for me to like go in January 1 and everything. So I had 52 20-gallon long tanks in my house.
Did you
just sitting here?
How many Petcos did you have to pillage to get that many?
About 10.
That's so awesome. Yes.
Yeah, no, the local store here in Yuba City, I'd get like, I think they got their shipments every Tuesday, let's say. And I'd go get
don't act like you
20
did.
long.
Don't act like you didn't know exactly when they got their shipments. Like, you knew the truck, you knew the drivers, man.
They all know me as the shrimp guy. So in fact, I just had to go back because I was 2 20 long short for filling the rack.
Oh, nice.
And 3 40 breeders short from filling the rack. And the girl that rang me up was like, "You look familiar. Are you that shrimp guy that used to come in and buy all the aquariums?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me."
Well, because the moment you buy anything over one aquarium, if you've got 2 aquariums in your cart in those terrible Petco carts that they have that are not meant for aquarium transportation whatsoever, they start asking you questions.
I have them pull out the flatbed. And I always tell them when I come in, I say, just pull out the flatbed. I'm going to take every 20 long you have and every 40 breeder.
And depending on what I was buying, that's the move, right? But the moment you're buying 2, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing with 2 aquariums?" And then
they're always very interested.
Yeah, and then when you blow their mind, like, "Do you have your cart back there? I'm gonna need 10 of these, 20 highs or whatever it is." They're like, "What? What do you mean you need 10 of these?" Like, it's like this
they're always
awkward,
very interested.
Yeah, it's like this awkward, really, really funny thing that happens that, like, if only people with multiple tank syndrome, only people that are building on a fish room get to experience that awkward joy of just completely freaking out Petco staff.
Yeah, and it's like they kind of live vicariously through you. They're like, "Oh my God, 10 aquariums! What are you doing?" "Oh man, I raise, I have angelfish. I have 1 aquarium. I'd love to have 10 aquariums." And you know what I mean? It's like they're so excited to see somebody be able to do something that in their mind they'd probably really like to do as well.
Yeah. So. If you're into the aquarium hobby, like, who wouldn't want to just go completely, ape crap crazy and just get a ton of tanks? I know when I was first in the hobby in the early 2000s, in seeing people's fish rooms on like Monster Fish Keepers, or especially when you saw like dudes in the Midwest that would convert their basement into a shark tank, it's like, oh my God, if I could do that. But it's like, no, I've got to keep my 100-gallon or my 200-gallon tanks in the master bedroom. That's already weird enough, and then the 110-gallon in the kitchen, like that was already kind of pushing it. But yeah, man, I'm all about them living vicariously through me, and I'll be happy to tell them what I'm going to do. They're not going to really understand, maybe, but I can fulfill their curiosity and let them know that I'm not making meth or any crazy thing like that.
Yeah. No, they're always, like you said, they're always a little shocked when they see somebody. Because literally, I'll just go in and I'll just say, "Hey, I need a flatbed. I need every 20 long you have, every 40 breeder you have." And then hopefully they all fit in the Jeep. But I've got it down to a pretty good science. I can fit, I think, 12 20 longs in the Cherokee. And I can fit 3 40 breeders with 3 20 long, or with a 20 long inside each 40 breeder.
Oh yeah,
nesting. And then 3 or 4 on top of the 40 breeders. So there's certain ways to maximize how many I can get. But yeah, I drive to Sacramento which is like 35 minutes away, depending on which area. And I just go hit there's like 4, and I'd go hit every one until I had a full Jeep, and then head home.
Are you hitting my old Petco off of Greenback?
Yeah,
Dude, I used to live over there, man. That's my old Petco.
I used to live over there too. I used to live off of Walerga.
Oh, I'm gonna have to Google map that when we're
Antelope and Walerga right there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I lived off of Greenback, right there off of 80 and Greenback. If you go across Greenback, that movie theater's right there. So that was
I used to drive past that every day when I went to work from where I lived.
Dude, that's so funny, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's a small world.
So you got the 54 20 longs on one wall, and what other racks, what other setups are going in there? Because I know you'd said 40 breeders.
So that's the left wall, and that was a wood rack that we built, which was about 50 something feet long. So it was quite a process to build it. And then so the right wall,
and that's tri-level, right?
Yeah, 3 tanks. Okay. I think the bottom of the first tank is about 18 inches off the ground. So I didn't want anything too low to where I have to get on my belly to see into them. But I didn't want anything too high as well. But the top row, I'm about 6 feet tall. So the top row, if I'm wearing flip-flops, I can barely see the bottom of it. If I'm wearing my normal shoes, I can see into it.
Well, what would you rather have, too high or too low? Obviously that middle height's going to be perfect, but which would you rather bias towards? The height or the low?
I'd rather have too high, because too high I can just get a little step stool and move it around and do whatever. With their too low, I mean, for me, I'm getting older. It's kind of a pain to get down on the ground and look into a tank.
Yeah.
For me, it's much easier to just take one step up on a stool and be able to look in. Plus, I don't really siphon water out too much anymore. But when you're siphoning water, it's much easier to get it out of an aquarium that's 7 feet off the ground compared to 6 inches off the ground. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, so the right side of the building, it's a shorter wall, because that's the wall where the office is, and then there's a restroom. So it's probably about, I don't know, maybe 40. I think it's 48 feet or something, that wall. But so I did. Home Depot has a 96-inch Husky rack, I think they're called.
I have one of those, yeah.
So I did 4 of those on that right wall. Tied them all in together, butted them all in together, screwed them all in together, screwed them into the studs, so they're all secure and everything. And basically the top row is storage, and then the bottom row is storage, and the 2 middle rows have aquariums. So it fits 16. It's 12 40 breeders and 4 30 breeders, just because I already had 4 30 breeders here at the house. So I just reused them instead of buying 4 new tanks. But so there's 16 40 breeders and 30 breeders on that right wall. And the right wall is going to be about 7 or 8 tanks for Neocaridina, which I hadn't had in years, but I'm starting up with those again. And then I have about 7 40 breeders that are just for growing out boosts. And then I have a tank for crypts, which it really sucks. I had all these really nice rare crypts that I've been growing out in my tanks here at the house for the last 2 years. And the tanks were cycled. I mean, they've been 2.5 months with Amazonian. I figured it was fine to add the crypts. They wouldn't melt. But I planted them all, and then within 3 or 4 days, literally every single one melted.
Oh, nice.
So all those leaves that have been growing for 2 years, nice big bushy crypts are down to nubs.
Wow.
So hopefully they grow back.
Yeah. And so you're gonna have tanks on just the 2 long walls then.
Yes, okay. That's phase 1. Now, obviously, if things go really well and I need to expand more, there's tons of room in the middle of the store to build another rack or whatever, which is what I wanted as well, because you don't want to be moving this stuff even once.
No.
So, and then basically, so what it'll be right now is, so I got a couch for in there. I have a video game Tekken Tag tournament. I'm trying to get a few more arcade games. So if anybody that's listening to this knows anybody that has it's a dual machine. It's NFL Blitz and NBA Showtime, NBA on NBC. If anybody has one of those or knows somebody that has one of those that wants to get rid of it, fairly reasonably priced, send me an email through my website or whatever. I'm looking for one of those. I'd really like to add that. But basically, it's going to have the couch will be more in the middle. I have it in there right now, but it's kind of just pressed up against a wall because it's still a work in progress. But ideally I'll have, and then actually somebody that a local shrimp keeper here had a coffee table aquarium.
Oh, nice.
That they no longer needed. They didn't want it anymore, and they were getting ready to expand and do more shrimp. So I had told them, if you don't want it anymore, I'll give you, X amount of dollars in store credit for when you're ready to buy more shrimp. If you just want to leave it for me or whatever, and they were fine with that. So it's a 20 long inside of it, and it's got a glass top. So for that, I think for right now, I'll just kind of leave it as it is, as just a coffee table, but maybe ultimately add water and shrimp or fish or something to it. But for now, it's just one extra tank to worry about. So yeah, the shop's coming along really well. I've basically added 90% of the shrimp that are going to be in the shop to their tanks. Everything's going really well. Have a death here or there, but when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of shrimp, it's bound to happen. So I don't really freak out. Like, people always ask me, what do you do when you see a dead shrimp? And I'm like, I just grab it and pull it out. To me, it's like if you have thousands of shrimp and they only live 2 years or so, then you're going to come across dead ones fairly often. Mm-hmm. Everything, basically all the shrimp are in the tanks. The right side, I moved all the booths over. I have neos in all the tanks breeding. So now it's just kind of a waiting game and kind of cleaning up and, figuring out how I want to situate what I have left. Like I said, it's basically a huge, wide open middle area. Like the racks are, butted up against the walls. So I have, let's say 1,400 feet of just wide open space. So it kind of looks weird when you walk in and everything. But once I move the couch and do a few things, I'm going to put some tables up just to make it easier. I have a shipping area that we built in the back corner. So it's coming along, but it's a work in progress. It's hard when it's really basically one person doing everything.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Let's talk water changes. So you didn't mention anything about drilling tanks, bulkheads for overflows. Are you going to do all manual water changes?
Well, so far it's been me a little bit, but the landlord's, or I should say the property manager's son, the property manager lives just around the corner from me. His son is like 16, I believe, and he's always, when he'd come by and everything, you could always tell he's always telling us, like, you need to get a job, you need to do something, go here, apply here. He's always on him about it. So I mentioned to him, I said, hey, I'm going to need help with water changes, one day a week or whatever. He can come help me out, and, I'll just give him a few bucks here or there. So he's been helping out the last 3 or 4 times. But yeah, basically, I have a transfer pump that would go from tank, the 20 longs on the wall, take about 5 gallons out. With the transfer pump, that takes about 45 seconds to a minute for each tank. And then I have a bunch of brute trash cans and some 55-gallon drums that I fill with RO water to refill them. And to do the left wall, it takes about 3.5 hours, which isn't really that bad. Mm-hmm. And then the right wall takes about an hour and a half with the 40 breeders. So I have him come basically do it while I do other things around the shop. I'll usually, add the bacterias back in, the GH back in. But as of right now, there's no auto top off, I always see stories of people with auto top off systems, and something happens, and a valve breaks or whatever, and if I had it hooked up to even 50 gallons of water, to walk in and see 50 gallons of water all on the floor wouldn't be a good thing.
Yeah, and I guess to go back to something I've been talking with Corey about, with him building back his fish room to get back into breeding, and some of the things that made him very passionate as an aquarist, is him purposely selecting with his new setups to not do auto water changes, an auto water change system, to force him to actually actively engage with his tanks. And for you as a business, like, that just sounds that much better for you, because now you will be forced to be actively engaged with each one of these tanks on such a personal level, right? In the actual taking of the water out, putting the water back in, putting your mineralizers and GH and all of that other fun stuff that you shrimp guys do. I guess that just in my head now, it just makes a lot of sense, and it's going to be better for the health of your shrimp, and just to keep you really connected and plugged in with each one of your tanks in the shop.
Yeah, no, a lot of people had that same concern, like, well, why don't you do an auto top off or an auto whatever system for it? And besides, obviously, like I said, the risk of overflowing and whatever happening, to me, I think it's important to look in your tanks at least once a day. So when you do the water change, for example, or when you're re-adding the minerals or whatever, it's forcing you to be present right in front of that tank for at least 30 seconds. And 30 seconds may not sound like much, but in 30 seconds, you can notice quickly if there's a dead shrimp that needs to be removed. Or in 30 seconds, you could see, oh, the pattern doesn't look as nice, and this one is the other one. Let me catch it and throw it in a cold tank. Or, oh, this shrimp, it even had shrimp jump from tank to tank somehow. I don't even know how it happens. But sometimes that happens. You catch a shrimp out, put it back in its other tank. But yeah, being present, even if it's 30 seconds in front of each tank you have. I try to do it every day. Now, obviously, I have a life as well. And yesterday I had to drive to San Francisco to pick up plants from USDA. And that was literally a whole day process. Came home, had to clean the plants, sort the plants, take pictures of the plants, list the plants. So I didn't even get to the shop yesterday. But that's a pretty rare occurrence for me. I try to go there every day, look at the shrimp. I mean, it's my hobby too. It's a business, obviously, but it's also my hobby and it's what I enjoy. I don't collect stamps. I don't have baseball cards. I don't, it is my one only hobby. So for me, it's also nice to go see all the shrimp as well because I don't have tons of them at the house anymore now. I mean, I'm redoing a bunch of the tanks here at the house, so they're cycling, and eventually they will have shrimp in them again. But like in my shrimp room right now, I think only like 7 of the 50 tanks have shrimp. So most of the stuff's over there at the shop. So for me, it's nice to just go there, take a look at all of them. Obviously, they're all in new tanks, new environments now. So it's kind of important to be on top of it because there will be problems. I guarantee I will have a tank where all of a sudden shrimp start dying. It's going to happen. Now, if I don't only go there every 3 days or only check each tank when there's an order from that specific tank, it's going to be a lot harder to get a handle on it and take care of it before it's a huge problem.
How close are you to that awesome Mexican restaurant that we ate at?
The one that we went to is on the other side of town.
Oh, I was gonna say,
it's
man,
like
if you're close to that place, that's gonna be dangerous.
no, but there's a taco truck that parks right out in front of the little strip mall where
Nice.
I am. Thankfully, the food's not that great, but when you're starving, anything works.
Yeah.
So I have hit it up a few times, but yeah, the place we went to is really good. That's the place that I have cater our shrimp meetup we do every year. Everybody seems to love it. One of the first questions they ask is, "Oh, are we getting food from the same place this year?" So I think they like it. I love it. I need to quit eating it, but it's very good.
Dude, that place is so good, man. Did I tell you that I got like deathly ill after when I drove down to Manteca for work? So yeah, for people that want to hear this fun story, and why not? You're listening to a free podcast. When I flew down to see you, it was coupled with a work trip. So I flew down on a Monday, which is typically travel day. So I fly into Sacramento, get the rental car, go up and hang out with you. And, we have a great time hanging out, went to a fish store, ate great Mexican food. And then as I'm driving down, it's like, oh man, I don't feel that great. I get to Manteca, California, where I was going to do some work for a warehouse that we were putting up. This is when I worked for Amazon. And I got just deathly ill that night. And I was in bed for the next how long was I there for? I think I was in bed for the next 2 days straight. So I get like deathly ill and I'm like bedridden. I've never been this sick before. It's 115 degrees outside. Manteca is just a terrible place to be when you're sick. That's actually where I'm born. So I'm not in my own hometown. And I didn't even have enough strength to pull my flight in and drive back up to Sacramento to take a flight home. Like I actually had to stay a full other day, work up the courage to drive to Target to get medicine, go back and just crash at the hotel room, completely freaking miserable, and then fly out one day earlier than I was supposed to. I did zero work, but it was all worth it because I got to hang out with you on Monday. So,
yeah, well, it wasn't food poisoning, right?
No, it wasn't food poisoning, man. I think there was just some other bug that I got, and I've never been sick like that. And then with the hotel, it was, these small hotel rooms, the AC units, basically, they're on full blast. And then once they hit their temperature, they shut off, and then it gets super hot. And then they kick back on full blast. And so I was constantly fluctuating with the room temperature, my body temperature. It was just a freaking terrible time. So, yeah, good times. Thank you very much, Manteca, for taking care of me, coming back to my hometown. That was that was not fun.
Yeah, no, my aunt lives in Manteca, so I'm fairly familiar with it.
Back to the business and the hobby. How do you balance and not burn out?
It's hard, but like I said, it's my only hobby. So I don't have a lot of other things that I go do. Um, and I just, for me, it's, I enjoy watching the shrimp. For me, it's pretty peaceful. Even if you just have one little, shrimp aquarium to just sit there for 5, 10 minutes a day and just kind of get lost in that world. Which I noticed myself doing at the shop. Even I'll just sit in front of a tank for 5 minutes and just scan the whole tank and look at every shrimp in there or try to. It is hard though. They say, don't ever turn your hobby into a business because then you'll hate it. But for me, I really like the people for the most part that are involved in the hobby. I have really good relationships with a lot of people. I consider many of them to be very good friends. So it's easier that way. I still, even though it is a business, I still look at it as a hobby. And the money that I make from it is just a bonus. But yeah, no, I easily see why people do say that though, not turn your hobby into a business because then you'll hate it. But thankfully for me, it hasn't got to that point, and I try to mix things up a lot. I go, like I said, go talk to clubs, go to events like the AGA, set up a booth, meet new people. Stuff like that I think helps keep it fresh and fun and exciting. I did retail for 19 years, so I was used to the main thing when I quit and started doing this full time is, like I said, I did retail for 19 years, managed a store. So literally every day I was talking to 100 people, let's say, hey, how's it going? Can I help you find anything? And then coming home and doing this, there's nobody to talk to. So that was the biggest change for me. But that's why I like going and doing stuff like the AGA, not just for the possibility to make money by having a booth and selling stuff, but I get to see a lot of my friends. And it always kind of sucks when you're stuck at a booth for 12 hours a day or whatever, and everybody else is going out and doing fun stuff and going out to lunch and whatever. But, at night you get a chance to see them. And, same with like aquatic experience or whatever. For me, it's like a vacation almost. Like I said, I've over the years, I've made tons of good friends in the hobby. It's just, for me, it's, I think going out and doing things and not just staying home and just constantly, catching shrimp, selling shrimp, catching, or, getting plants, selling plants, but getting away from it, even though you're still immersed in it, you're not doing the same thing. You're out, networking with people. To me, I think that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think some of the points you brought up there. I think the ability to mix in some of that travel to help to break up that Monday through Friday, or granted it's your own business, so your 7 day a week routine with the travel every couple months, being able to go out there, meet new people, engage with the hobby in a different capacity than just you wake up at home, you do your thing, you do kind of your routine that you have, and then you go to sleep, and then you kind of do it all over again. So I think that travel component is super important, to not be saddled to, like, if you opened up your own shop, like a retail store, and you were saddled to that thing 7 days a week, I could totally see how that would burn somebody out.
Oh, like, absolutely.
You don't get to go anywhere whatsoever 7 days a week. I mean, my parents and my dad still has his own business, and we were, as a family, we were saddled to that business. We went on very, very few full family vacations with all of us being in attendance. Somebody had to stay behind and run the business. So, I can completely understand that.
Yeah, no, and the shop will just be by appointment only too. So it's not going to be open, to the public or anything. So that gives me freedom too. I don't have to be there every day for 8 hours. Usually I go there for like an hour, check and make sure everything's looking okay, catch any shrimp I need to catch to ship out the next day or ship out that day. Then I'm kind of free to go do other things, which makes it nice.
Dude, if you actually open up next to that Mexican restaurant we ate at, and you have NFL Blitz arcade, you would go there every single day, because Blitz is a gangster game. That game is so fun.
Yeah, no, that's the goal, is to get a few arcade games in there, so when people do come and visit, it's not like, it's not high pressure sales or anything where it's like, I'm like, oh, you want this shrimp? You want that shrimp? Just come relax for an hour or two. There's a fridge, grab a soda or a water. There's a couple video games. There's a couch, sit down on the couch, look at your Facebook, whatever. And, when you want to look at shrimp, just go look at shrimp,
Dude, that's like art gallery status, man. Like, yeah, you got to make an appointment. You come in, you get some refreshments and the drink. You can hang out at the couch. You just kind of peruse at your leisure. Like, that feels so like upper echelon of society kind of thing. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. I want it to be, I want it to be a place where people can just kind of come hang out and relax. And, I had a guy that was coming up from San Jose to go to the Sacramento Aquarium Society meeting 2 weeks ago, I believe, when Dean from I think he's from the Seattle group, right?
Yeah,
was speaking.
That's Master Breeder Dean, man. Corey and I wanted to go down there and crash one of his talks, but work has just been too hectic, so we didn't get a chance to do that.
So the guy came up from San Jose because he wanted to see Dean's talk or whatever, and he had bought some shrimp, and I was like, well, you just want to come meet at the shop or whatever, and he's like, yeah, cool, sure, and he came and hung out for like an hour, and it's not like I'm like right behind everybody or over their shoulder, like go take a look at shrimp, and a lot of people, like he said, I don't know how long he's been in the hobby, but he's got a few tanks, I think, and to him it was just really cool to see all the different varieties in one room. He could go this tank, see this shrimp, move down one tank, it's another shrimp, to be able to go one place and see, let's say, 60 different kinds of shrimp. For him, it was really cool, and I assume it'll be really cool for other people too.
Now, are you going to try to meet customer demand with only shrimp that you've bred, maybe for neocaradinas or caradinas, either one, or is it going to be purely a thing where just because demand is so insatiable for the hobby right now that you're going to have to import, you're going to have to do your quarantine process for however long to make sure you're shipping out healthy shrimp? Like, is that kind of the route that you and other people are going to have to kind of operate in?
It just depends. Certain shrimp, I breed very well and I can keep up with the demand. Other shrimp, I just can't. High grade blue bolts, for example. I get 2 or 3 messages every day. You have any high grade blue bolts? There's no way. Even if I had five tanks devoted to them, I could keep up with the demand. So some stuff I do import from Vin. And then with the Neos, the goal is to breed as much as I can in my own tanks. But with the expansion, my other goal is to be able to do more wholesale. I do get approached by a lot of, mom and pop fish stores, that are like, hey, we want to carry shrimp. Can you provide us with this, and this? And I never had the neocaradinas, which is what they want. 90% of them, it's what they're familiar with. They can basically throw it in a tank that was set up for guppies, let's say, and they're going to do all right. Caradina, they'd have to set up special tanks. Not every store has an expert on, shrimp keeping, on how to do that. So before, I basically offered wholesale on Caradina, but I'd like to expand into offering more wholesale for neocaradina. So, like I said, I think I have about 10 tanks devoted to neocaradina. I have a Bloody Mary tank, a Painted Fire Red, a Blue Dream, a Yellow Neo tank, and I still have 3 tanks open because I'm still debating whether I want to import, probably, Painted Fire Reds, Blue Dreams, and maybe Yellow Shrimp to offer more as a wholesale thing. And then on the website, sell my homebred ones.
Interesting.
So that will probably be the route I go, just because there's so many people, especially on the wholesale side, where if you don't have neocaradina options, they just kind of move on to somebody else because they'd like to get all their shrimp at one time. So that was the main part of the expansion was to be able to meet that demand. When I go to AGA or when I go to all these things, there's always other aquarium shop owners there that are come checking it out, and I always get asked, hey, do you do wholesale? Do you do wholesale? And basically I have like 4 or 5 wholesale people that I wholesale to, but that was my limit. I couldn't wholesale anymore without it affecting the retail side.
Sure.
So the goal with the expansion was to kind of be able to do a little bit more of that. So we'll see how it goes. It's still, it's still new. And I mean, in a perfect world, I'd have the Neos breeding like crazy and I could keep up with demand, retail side and wholesale side. But for the, like the Painted Fire Reds, the Blue Dreams, I just don't know if that's going to be a reality without importing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I know for the Neos, I mean, at Aquarium Co-op in our retail store, we only carry neocaradinas. So I don't know if we would ever move into carrying one of the hardier Caradina varieties, but I just know right now from a retail store perspective, it's just, you pretty much stick to Neo Caradina.
Yeah, no, not like I said. I have a few shops that I wholesale to Caradina shrimp that do very well with them. Because thankfully I'm able to offer them at a pretty low price wholesale. With the main goal being to expand the hobby. The more people that see these shrimp in their local fish store, the more people it's going to bring into the hobby, which is the goal. It doesn't benefit just me; it benefits every other business that's in the hobby, every person that's in the hobby. The more people involved, the better. And I think the best way to get people into the hobby that aren't familiar with it is if a local fish store has a couple aquariums with them. And then, from there they can, decide what they want. If they want to go the Caradina route, then they can, buy the substrate, buy the remineralizers, RO if they want, and go that route. Or they can just pick the Neos and stick with those. But, thankfully, a lot of the stores that I deal with, they say they do really well with them. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, I think that's also a good point. Like just increasing the number of people that are in the hobby, growing the hobby, keeping that always in the back of your mind that, if you're ever on the border of feeling like you're being burned out, because you turned your hobby into a business, you doing that, right, and running this online site, doing your wholesaling, and also going and traveling and speaking and judging, like those are all things that help to contribute to growing the hobby, making the hobby more vibrant and active and interactive. So, I would say even for me, like helping to keep that in the back of my mind as I'm helping to, do whatever it is for Aquarium Co-op or with Aquarius Podcast or, any of the silly fish related stuff that I'm doing that, hopefully that publicity, just getting one more media outlet for people to consume that are in the tropical fish and shrimp space, maybe it brings one or two more people into the hobby.
Well, and it does. I mean, that's really the only way we can add people to the hobby, is, whether, with your podcast, somebody stumbles across it and they learn about, Achilles or whatever, and they're like, oh, I'd really like to try this fish out. And they, maybe they can't get it from their local fish store, but they have it sent in specially or whatever, and they try it and they get hooked. That's the thing is most people with aquariums, once they try one aquarium, they get one aquarium going, and if people are there to help them be successful with that one aquarium quickly becomes 4 aquariums, 5 aquariums, 6 aquariums. So it's not just showing them is great, but also helping them to be successful is important as well.
Yeah, so I mean, on that note, it's kind of, it's unfortunate for people that don't have good local fish stores or even a local fish store in their area, and they relied on Walmart for their fish supply. It's kind of this blessing and a curse with Walmart no longer selling live fish, because I would have to imagine that now, people that may have had that bad experience buying a fish at Walmart and then completely leaving the hobby altogether, those aren't going to happen anymore. I'm sure that there probably are the scenarios of, I bought my fish from Walmart and it ended up being a terrible experience because the information just wasn't there, and they had the gumption or they had the drive to learn. They go on YouTube and they stumble across, like an Aquarium Co-op YouTube channel or, Aqua Pros or whoever it is that's putting out some good content and good information that's based in experience, and they can then resurrect their time and they can resurrect their experience in the hobby and move forward and have really, really positive experiences. But I feel like that scenario is in the minority, though. I feel like most people that probably bought fish at Walmart had a terrible experience, and just,
and they just leave the hobby.
And they leave the hobby and they leave that 10-gallon on the side of the road that we all drive by and we're like, oh man, that's an aquarium. Should I stop and get that? Yeah. And sometimes we do, but we all see that aquarium on the side of the road, and it's, that was that. And the sad thing about that is at one point that was just pure excitement. That was pure excitement for a kid. That was pure excitement for an adult. That was pure excitement for a family. And then it turned into this thing that just spiraled out of control. Everything died, and it's just, well, there goes, $200 that we're never going to get back, and we just have this terrible experience impressioned on us, and we're never going to keep fish again.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was an opportunity to get one person or a family hooked, and whether it was Walmart or whoever sold it to them or whoever didn't help them, or they didn't take it upon themselves to go find the correct information. I mean, we lost them, and it's unfortunate, but you see it all the time in the shrimp community as well. People buy shrimp one time. Like, not everybody has $60 to spend every 2 weeks to get 10 new shrimp. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, that $60 that's what they're going to spend. And if they're not successful, then they're gone from the hobby. So it's really important, in my opinion, to give people the best information you can, be as helpful as you can. I field questions I mean, I probably get between friends, between other businesses, people, probably 50 messages a day on Facebook, and people that are just, I have a question, I don't know the answer to this. Could you help me? What's your opinion on it? And I think it's important for us to give back. And even though that person didn't buy the shrimp from me, that person may never buy anything from me. But that's not the point. The point is, I want them to be successful, because maybe in 2 years, they're super successful and they do buy something from me. It helps everybody. The more successful we can make every hobbyist, it's better for everybody.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the perfect attitude to have, and it's the hard one. That's the more difficult path to take, because it would be easy to just ignore those messages or to give them very terse, very scripted responses. But the fact that you're going to go and spend that time to give those answers, I mean that's the better, more difficult route.
No, and it's just, I don't know. I feel like I try to be a pretty decent person in life, and to me, it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes of my life. I can give 15 minutes to help somebody. It's not that big of a deal. Some people look at it the other way, like, oh, you didn't buy those from me. Well, ask the person you bought them from. Or, are you going to buy this from me if I tell you about it for 10 minutes? To me, it's just a different mindset. It's explain everything to them and let them make the decision. Most people really are thankful for the help, and they will decide to make a purchase down the road or whatever. But, it's about getting people on the right foot, setting them up to succeed, and then hopefully they stay within the hobby and the hobby continues to grow.
Nice. So what else do you see as far as in the business? Like, what other kind of, yeah, I don't want to call them lofty, but what do you see within the next 5 years of something that you'd like to get into without, opening up too much of the BuyPetShrimp playbook?
Honestly, I mean, nothing major, no major changes that I see in the future. But I would like to, I started out, my first aquarium I ever had were guppies, just regular like $2 guppies from none of the nice fancy stuff like we see everywhere now. But I'd like to start a couple aquariums, I think, with some really nice guppies. Whether I do that at the shop or the house, one of the two, maybe a couple, I don't even know what the correct size that they recommend for a group of, 4 or 5 guppies is. I'd have to do a little research. But whether it's a 10-gallon or a 20 long or whatever, I'd like to set up a couple tanks, because some of these guppies are beautiful. You see more and more people with guppies now, and some of the patterns and like the tails and everything really strike me. So I'd like to, I think, set up like maybe 2 or 3, and I say 2 or 3 knowing that that'll quickly become 10 or 20. 2 or 3 guppy tanks, I think.
I mean, I think guppies are just the Caridina equivalent, right, in the fish world. I mean, the variety, the tail patterns, the body patterns. I mean, there's color, there's patterning, there's even like the Dumbo ears that you see out there. Like, it's crazy the amount of varieties of guppies that are out there. And actually, I think right now what I'm really enjoying, and as I kick off my official YouTube video career, and I'm actually starting to put out video content now to kind of share these cool experiences that I'm doing and things that are going on in my fish room, because people kind of miss that, or at least when I talked about it in the very, very early episodes. I've got 2 40-gallon tanks right now that have kind of guppy colonies. I have dispersed, male females to 10-gallon tanks around the fish room, just to have, not all my eggs in one basket for a particular strain. So I actually, put some decent coin out there on Aquabid, and I brought in some black tie Moscows. So very fancy kind of guppy, but, blacked out fish, basically. The males are just super black. Very, very cool. And these things are kind of a retail at $20 a pair. They're that kind of guppy. And then at the co-op, we have these mixed tanks of assorted guppies that we bring in and we sell for, I don't know, nothing compared to $20. And there were these like kind of metallic-y sheen ones. I'm like, oh, I want 2 trios of these guys, and I was very specific about which ones. I was actually being that kind of customer to my own store of, I don't know, these males, these females. And right now, like those guppies, and I think Corey and Robert had told me they're like, metallic head something guppies, but they're not the expensive ones, but they are freaking amazing, and I am absolutely loving these fish right now. And they're in right now with super red bristle nose that are just popping off, breeding babies, and actually the hornwort in this tank. So all the hornwort that's like spread out in my fish room came from you, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that stuff grows like crazy. I probably put one piece that was like 18 inches. I cut it into like 8 or 10 pieces and put it in the Neocaridina tanks at the shop. And now each one of them's like 2 feet long.
Dude, it's incredible, man. And then what I like to do is take pieces of spider wood and just sink it down, and so then it ends up growing up, right? Even though I don't have substrate, it still kind of gives the illusion of that. But the moment it hits the water surface, it then starts dispersing out laterally. So I mean, it's incredible, like the way this hornwort's taken off. But
yeah, that's a good idea.
Nonetheless, that's all being very long winded. I'll snap some footage of these guys for you, and if you want any of these, I'd be more than happy to send you some free of charge. I mean, just to hook you up if you like this particular variety. And I say that only if you want them, because there are so many flavors of guppies out there that you may be like, you know what, no, that freaking rainbow sherbet creamsicle delta tail, whatever the hell they're calling it, that's the one that I want.
It's definitely something I need to, it's definitely something, if I'm going to get into it, I need to do more research on it. And then, actually look at all the strains and maybe pick my 2 or 3 favorite, because I really don't I mean, I have the room technically, but I don't have the room, to add 20 tanks, but I'd like to add a couple tanks, I think, and just for fun, not with the intention to sell them on the website or anything, but just more of a fun thing. One of the few things you can do to keep the hobby fresh. Do something a little different.
I was just gonna say, man, it's just fun. Like, that is the best way to describe a tank that's just popping off with guppies. It's just fun.
Yeah,
like it's so enjoyable. All right, Eric. Well, we've approached getting close to that hour mark. It's getting late over here on the West Coast at 10:30. So, man, thank you very much for staying up late with me. I know you've put in a full busy day getting this shop running. When do you expect, like, the official, lights on? You are fully moved into the space.
Fairly soon. I mean, basically, once I get the rest of the shrimp in there, that's basically just taking the time to catch the shrimp, which catching shrimp out of 50 tanks, I don't think people realize how much time that has taken me. Because I have some tanks that, even though it's a 9-gallon tank, it had 500 shrimp in it.
Oh man, that's awesome.
So, and if a tank just had 3 buried females give babies, that's like 50 or 60 like microscopic shrimp in there. So basically what I did was I caught all the big ones out of most of the tanks. And then I go back like a week or 2 later and catch all the babies that I missed. Because usually within about 2 weeks they get a little bit bigger, a little more colorful, and they're a little bit easier to see. But I mean, if somebody was coming by, right, if somebody messaged me and said, hey, I'm going to be in the Sacramento area tomorrow, I'd like to come see the shop, then obviously that I'd open it up for them and they could come take a look. I feel like it may be one of those things that's always kind of a work in progress, that will never fully be done. But it's at a point right now where people could feel free to say, hey, I want to stop by and take a look at shrimp or whatever. Just a few minor things that need to be done. I haven't moved like the products and everything over to the shop yet. That I was waiting until all the shrimp were over there and everything to move all the products over there as well, to make it where I can do all the orders at one place. So the products will be going over soon. And then after that, everything's about done. I mean, like I said, I have a few more shrimp to move over. But just a few tanks are, a couple of the new tanks are cycling still. But I mean, 90% of it's basically done.
Well, I think definitely before the year's out, before 2019's out, I'm gonna fly down there, and I'll if you don't mind, I'll come down there and hang out with you again, just to check the place out, get those amazing tacos, and
and if you're, like you said, if you're doing your YouTube thing again or whatever, you can make a YouTube video of it or whatever.
Oh, well, we'll for sure do an audio podcast down there, but yeah, definitely do film some stuff down there, because I mean, we could basically do a day trip out of it. I could fly down super early in the morning at a SeaTac. Actually, are they doing flights to Sacramento out of Payne Field? Because that one's way closer than SeaTac. Either way, I mean, that's pretty much a day trip. Fly down there, drive up to your spot, and then fly back on a late flight. I mean, that's totally doable.
No, that's
in one
easy.
day.
Yeah, that's totally. And I could even pick you up at the airport and drive you back, so you don't even got to rent a car or whatever. But Southwest always has really good deals, so you can find a good deal if you book it enough in advance.
Oh, for sure. Only if I get to drive the Challenger, though.
You can drive it. I tell people,
yes.
People all the time ask, and I go, okay, yeah, you can drive. And they're like, no, okay,
Dude,
I don't want to drive it.
That car is so scary fast. Oh, my goodness.
I need to get new tires on it, though. So.
Oh, man. I wonder why.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, it's been fantastic catching up with you again, Eric. having you on as the first guest, I mean, I think it was just divine intervention. You and I, we've hit it off so well. We've seen each other at Aquatic Experience. We've seen each other at the Seattle Club when you talked. We saw each other at AGA. I've been down to your house. I mean, we've broke bread together. Like it's been a great friendship. Just that's come from me reaching out to you, and actually, it was me reaching out to you on your website of the chat with us. And I'm like, I'm just gonna reach out to this Erik Lucas guy and see if he wants to be guest number one or a guest on the podcast. And you said yes, and the rest is kind of history. And I think we've got a great friendship from it.
Yeah, no, I definitely consider you one of my better friends in the hobby. So you're always welcome here at the house or at the shop or whatever, wherever I see you.
Awesome, buddy. Well, thank you very much, and we'll make sure I've got all the links to BuyPetShrimp on there. Are you putting up YouTube videos?
I just started putting up some content, not really
Good.
videos
Okay.
per se. I did some auctions on there and stuff, or not necessarily auctions, but with Facebook's new policies on live animals, I take a video of some shrimp and put them up on my YouTube and say, these are $150 for these 3 shrimp or whatever. And then people contact me. I believe I think it's BuyPetShrimp is my YouTube. But the goal is, not any fancy videos like Corey makes or you'll make or whatever, but just kind of basic, here's what's going on at the shop today, type videos. Nothing like, highly edited or anything. It'll be probably me cussing a lot and messing up a lot and, dropping stuff at the shop or smashing a shrimp with a shrimp net or something, trying to catch it.
Well, I'll make sure I'll find your YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that in the show notes, and I'll make sure your Facebook and all that stuff, so people can find out. If you haven't gone back and listened to Randy's attempt at a podcast with episode 1, I highly recommend you go back, not because of me, but to listen to Erik Lucas and all the cool stuff, because you dropped a lot of knowledge on me, because I was just so fresh back into the hobby. I had no clue about so many things, and you did a great job educating me, and 64 some odd episodes later, here we are.
Yep. So maybe about another year and a half, it'll be a third time.
Well, it'd be sooner than that if I fly down before.
If you come down.
The year's out. Yeah. All right, Erik, man, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody goes and checks out your website and all the cool social media stuff you have.
Awesome. Thank you, Randy.